Hello and welcome to a muddy episode of the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host, once again, Nick Harmon. With us today, Sheila Cross of Mud Skip. That's mud with 2 D's. Sheila is a finance person who wanted more out of life than just sitting on the beach or climbing mountains, and so she saw an opportunity to speed up the drywall finishing process. Mud Skip was born, but there might be more to this story than just an amazing new product. But why did mud need to be better?
Well, so interestingly enough, back in 2020, I had a conversation with an individual who's on the executive team for a very large mud manufacturer in the US. And I asked them, what are the 3 things that are most important to you as a company that you're trying to change or improve or be the differentiator? And the answer was very simply time or labor time, sanding, reducing sanding so there isn't as much toxicity, and value, bringing value to the end user and the consumer. So after that conversation, I knew we were onto something. That was when I filed the patent, because our product does all of those things and more.
We discussed the family challenges Sheila faced over the last 10 years that helped shape Mud Skip, and we also talk about the patenting process and why Sheila felt that was important. Mud Skip helps cut the drywall finishing process in half, and we set out to find out why, plus much more in this episode. Today's episode of the Drywall Podcast was brought to you by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. Fresco Harmony can be found in a lot of different places, including GWI over in Swindon, England. We're also in CSR in 2 locations in Ontario, Barrie and Vaughan, Ontario. A myriad of places in Colorado, and our most recent location, Nieberge Lumber out of Dietrich, Illinois. If you'd like more information about Fresco Harmony, you can contact me directly at info@frescoharmony.com, and I'll tell you how you can get a free sample pack if you've never tried it. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a sweet swag bucket from our friends up at CSR just for coming on the show. I know it's a little daunting telling your story and all that good stuff, but it's really easy and it's kind of a lot of fun. So if you are inclined, you could reach out to me at info@frescoharmony.com or call me 505-400-9313. I would love to hear your story, and I'm sure there is a bunch of listeners out there that would love to hear your story as well. Have the courage, reach out, let's do it. But for now, sit back, settle in, and skip your way to a better drywall project on this, the 120th episode of the Drywall Podcast with Sheila Cross. Let's get into it.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sheila.
Yes. Nick.
Princess of Power.
Nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you. Here we are.
I actually was, it's funny you mentioned that. My nieces used to call me Shira, Sorceress of Power, when they were like 2 years old. So that makes me feel good. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think it's Shira, Princess of Power. But we could do, for the purpose of this episode, we will do Sheila, Princess of Power. Totally fine. Have you familiarized yourself with the Drywall Podcast before?
I actually had time to watch one episode.
Beautiful.
Which was the one that Paul had sent me. The gal that had taken over her grandfather's business.
Lana. Yeah.
I apologize. I don't remember all the names.
That's all right. That's all right. She's cool. She's really cool.
I love her initiative to recycle the drywall product. That was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool story. Yeah, they're all a little different, you know. They all sort of go in their own direction. We have Sheila Cross
Mhm.
of Mudskip, and this is going to be a good episode because I don't know very much about Sheila. I met somebody at the Vegas AWCI show 2 years ago, and we talked a little bit about Mudskip. He checked out Fresco Harmony. I had a booth there. I checked out Mudskip a little bit. Maybe you guys had launched back then. We'll get into that, like what that was all about. But I reached out to a Paul Hardison, and
Mhm.
he said, "Oh, you got to talk to Sheila." And I was like, "Okay." I'll talk to whoever. I'm curious about this Mudskip stuff. You guys have been coming up on social media a lot lately, so maybe you've had a resurgence, or since 2 years ago, maybe you've just been sort of like waiting, and then you had this launch.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. We'll get into that.
Sure.
But let's start sort of from the beginning. Um, this is drywall. Now, do you have any type of background in drywall or like material manufacturing or anything like that? How does this come to be? I'm not sure where to start, but uh,
We'll work through it. It's all right.
do you have a degree?
I do, but it's not in construction.
Okay,
So it's in finance. But in any
perfect.
case, my late husband and I built homes for many, 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 many years. So I'm
Okay.
very familiar with the process. Have I ever actually applied joint compound to a wall until this little venture transpired? No. So
Cool.
it's been an interesting journey, to say the least.
Yeah.
40 years in the making, I would say.
Okay. What was, if you don't mind, the name of your late husband? Can we give him a shout
Of
out?
course, of course. His name is Randy Cross. Geneva
And
Homes was his construction company, and everybody
okay.
called him RC.
And well, you have a background in finance. So you can get, it wasn't business. It was actually, you can get a
No
degree in
business, but I
finance.
focused business degree, but focused on finance and real estate. So I was
Okay.
in charge of all of the financing for the projects, and then
Yeah.
obviously the back of the house, paying the bills and making sure
Yeah.
that the projects came in at or under budget. So I
Uh,
saw all the materials coming and going, of course, day in and day out. But I would say that my breadth of construction was taking my sons to the job site, possibly to help their dad.
okay. How many sons?
I had three sons.
Oh my goodness. Names of the sons, really quick, if you don't
So
mind.
my oldest son is Jordan Randall Cornelius Cross.
Okay.
I was afraid I wouldn't have any more children, so I wanted to use all my names in him because it was a
Sure.
horrible process.
Yeah.
And my middle son, Colin Jacob Cross, and my youngest, Jack Harlan Cross.
Colin?
Colin Jacob Cross, and then my youngest is Jack Harlan Cross.
And then how do you spell Colin?
Two L's, Collin.
All right, excellent. Three beautiful boys. And then finance, that's smart. So, and I'm always a little bit jealous of these power couples where the one person is, doing business stuff, maybe running this building, this Geneva Homes, and then like he's got the kicker of this like finance wizardress behind the scenes, like handling that shit because nobody likes to handle that stuff. But you guys were that.
We had a lot of fun.
Okay, all right. And
I
you
wouldn't I
you
wouldn't say it was wizardry by any, it's really not that difficult. It's really not that
Well,
complex.
hey,
But
fresco harmony is not that difficult either, if you do it and if you've been doing it for years.
this is
Um,
true.
finance hard. That's just me. That's just me. Some people might be wizards at both. Who knows? But okay, great. We're off to a good start. Um, And you guys were successful with with this home
Yeah.
business. Okay.
In
Okay.
Dalton, Wisconsin for many, many years. That's where I'm from originally.
Okay.
And of course, had the opportunity to come to warm Texas back in the early 90s, took advantage of that opportunity. And my husband was very happy to be able to not have to work in the sub-zero temperatures anymore. My son this morning just sent me a text that it's negative 12 degrees on his car thermometer on the way to the work.
Yeah, a little cold snap going up there.
Just a little
Uh,
bit.
I just went skiing in Wolf Creek, as you know. We talked on
Yeah,
Friday a little bit,
yeah.
and it was fun. Cold. Like my son, he got so cold that two times, bless his heart, like he kept going, but like, he loves skiing, but like his hands, the first time was his feet, like got so cold that we had to stop in the lodge on the first run, and he was like convulsing and crying on the floor while they were
Oh,
warming up. And like I got him some hot cocoa and he warmed up and we went out and finished out the day. But it was that cold. Like my hands too. We couldn't finish out the day because my hands were so cold. Like just freezing.
a day for hot hands in your boots, in your breeches, and in your gloves and hat.
Yeah, yeah. I stuffed like the hand warmers into his
Yeah,
sock, in between
yeah.
his sock, put his foot in the boot.
Well, that's
They
funny.
do. They came in handy. So you're into what part of Texas?
Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay,
We're
nice,
manufacturing in Dallas Fort Worth as well as the Houston area and
beautiful.
the Midwest as well.
Okay, cool. So, but we're still in homes at this point in the '90s. Why move to Texas?
So I had an opportunity in the finance industry to change careers and took advantage of that. And so we just moved the construction company down here,
Okay,
continued on doing what we do for many, 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 many years.
okay, and then something happened and we don't have to talk about it. Something happened with Randy.
Yeah, it's okay because it actually is part of the backstory of why I'm sitting
Okay,
here today. It's a big part of
okay,
why I'm sitting here.
okay.
He passed away at 54 of a massive heart attack,
Young.
undetected, very, very healthy. Just a very tragic event for our family, shocking. And
Yeah,
so, when you go through traumatic events, your perspective changes.
yeah.
And that I would say that I was probably a very hyper focused type A businesswoman.
Yeah.
And then when something like that happens, you get just knocked to your knees and
Yeah.
you, everything changes the way you think, the way you look at business, the way you look at your relationships. And
Yeah.
so, it was truly the genesis to where we're at today. It's been 10
Okay.
years making
Okay.
since then. He passed away it was November of 2014.
Okay.
It's past 10 years.
Pretty recent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty recent. I gleaned that a little bit when we talked a short period of time on Friday. You were like, enjoy every moment. Like,
Yeah. Cherish,
um,
cherish the minutes, the minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Feels
I'm
drop.
generally the one telling people that. So, but it's always a good reminder, because we get so caught up in like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Then before you know
Absolutely.
it, like the trip's over. And I was like, I didn't even, I was too busy doing other stuff to appreciate being present with my child.
Right, right. It in blink of an eye.
Okay, and the boys, how did everybody handle it? I mean, yes, it was a shock. That had to have been really hard on them.
Yeah, for sure. So it was very traumatic. My oldest was a senior in college, playing college
Ugh,
football.
okay.
My now I got to think, make sure I get this right. My
Yep.
middle was a senior in high school, and
Okay.
my youngest was a freshman in high school. So the
Okay.
freshman and the senior were playing football together. It was Friday Night Lights, the weekend. And so we had games in Texas and then turned around and flew to Minnesota for my oldest son's football game. And that was the last weekend that he was alive. So it
Yeah.
was difficult for my oldest because he was at the end of his senior year and he had one more football game in his career that obviously he missed. And
Yeah.
then of course the middle son being a senior in high school, it's hard for boys to lose their dad. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I can't appreciate or understand being, because I'm a girl, but I've lost my father recently as well. And
Yeah.
I know how that feels, but dads and their sons have a special relationship and mine certainly did. So they had a very strong network, I would say. They went to a great school here in Colleyville. They had just a lot of amazing friends that wrapped them up and a lot of community. And my family is a force. There's no other way to describe it. They're just amazing.
Sure.
Lots of
Yeah. I was a freshman in high school when I lost my brother.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was like 91, long time ago, but that's a formidable age too.
Mhm.
You're just sort of
Mhm.
starting to figure things out.
Did you have an older brother or
Yeah, he
any
was old. He was older. Yeah.
the one you lost?
Uh-huh.
So you didn't have another older brother that you could lean
No,
on?
middle sister. Middle sister. We're still tight today.
But
She's funny. I'm funny. He was funny.
yeah,
Come from a funny family. We were doing stuff, a lot of fun. I was
yeah,
reflecting on with my friend Jeremy, because the kids complain about stuff. So I was reflecting on like, man, we didn't get, well, like he didn't have a dad. Like he had several dads. We weren't really there, but I was talking about like, my dad took us up skiing,
yeah.
taught me how to ski. What a gift that was, like a
Mhm.
lifelong gift. I'm like, we're giving these kids this lifelong gift of being able to come up here because it's a bitch to go skiing or snowboarding.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of gear, takes a lot of energy. Not everybody gets to. And what a blessing that is, so for us to teach them, but also for them to get to have this thing like that was given
Right.
to me. And he was like, yeah, I got gypped. Like all high school, my friends were always going, boarding and stuff. And he didn't get to go because he didn't know how.
Yeah. Never too late.
Yeah.
I
Good call.
can I ask you what happened to your brother?
It was, I mean, we could speculate. It was one of those situations where, when somebody like, because I had a stepbrother recently pass, he took his own life, and in both instances, this is like 2 weeks ago, like it's
Oh
fresh,
my
and
gosh.
we were close, like we were friends. I got to see him a year and a half ago. Loss is part of life. It was hard. I did like a memento video for him recently, but in both instances, it was like where my initial reaction was, oh, now he doesn't have to worry. He was such a troublemaker. Like, he has a great spirit, but like, man, he was in trouble. He had a condition called diabetes insipidus where he
Are
wasn't
you
able.
kidding me?
No. Are you
Wow.
familiar? You're familiar with diabetes insipidus? Like it's
My
so
youngest son has diabetes insipidus, and it's very rare.
yeah, and
Brain
but
cancer survivor. So what
okay.
did your stepbrother have brain cancer or another issue that
No,
caused it?
no, this was my brother
Oh, your
back.
brother. Oh, okay.
Yeah, my brother back in he died in 91. But when he was younger, he would give himself shots in the leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they have this medicine that you blow and you sniff up your nose. Like that he would take all the time to regulate this condition, this unique condition. But what happened was it exacerbated like a drinking problem that was like predisposed.
Mhm.
So he became an alcoholic very quickly. And like, there's speculation, but he died basically, drinking and driving.
Mm,
Um,
sorry.
in theory. But he was a great guy, just super crazy and like, lived life to its fullest. As the other one dealt he was 58, dealt a lot with mental, like depression, like that sort of thing. And, that's a whole different story, but that's interesting. I've never heard of anyone in my 48 years that has even familiar with diabetes insipidus.
Nor have I. So I'm a little uncomfortable right now because this is kind of kismet. I believe that
Yes,
you meet people for an absolute reason. Every
yeah,
person you come in contact with in life is for a purpose.
I believe
And
so too.
the fact that we have so many things in common, I really didn't want to get into all of this because it's kind of a downer, but it's really good to talk about because so many
Yes,
people deal with this. And
yes,
really the genesis of Mudskip is because of exactly what we're talking about. So
beautiful.
I'll just tell you the rest of the story if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
keep it short,
we'll
but
get to mud skip. If you're
yeah,
listening, just, hang in there. We're
there's
going to get to
really
the
good
mud
stuff to
skip.
come.
You
Super
know,
good stuff to
you
come.
know what? A great story has a good background, and I like to flesh out that background. And
Yeah,
it's like, tease out why Sheila. How do we get to this crazy mud skip stuff? And so
yeah.
this is all valuable.
So, and the fact that you were comfortable enough to share your relationships and what happened to your people, I
Of
will give you
course.
a little more details. So, after my husband passed, my middle son, who was brilliant, he's the child that had I listened to him when he was 8 years old, I would have $4.2 billion in Bitcoin because he told me to buy $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, he didn't know I don't think he understood how much $100,000 was because he said, like, it's no big deal. And I looked at him like, okay, not today, son.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was like a fraction of a penny at that time.
Sure.
And anyway, so the long and story of his journey is he actually turned to drugs.
Okay.
After his father passed. And he
Okay.
ended up succumbing to a Xanax-induced fentanyl overdose while at Boulder University when
Okay.
he was 19, 20, excuse me. Drake was 19.
Okay. Just a precursor too, Sheila. I'm 20 years sober. Clean and
Congratulations.
sober. Yeah. So we
Bravo.
recovery
Bravo.
comes up a lot on the podcast. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I don't dwell on it, but it does come
It
up.
helps. It
So
helps people to see. People
yeah,
have to see because, and for me, I love to see the success stories because
yeah,
Collins was not a success.
sure.
This company is a lot about that. So that will be the legacy. But that was about 2 years after his dad passed, just 2 years and 2 months
Okay.
after his dad passed. And then through this journey, you can only imagine, the family's in major turmoil. My youngest son, Jack, was diagnosed with bifocal intracranial germinoma, which is a brain cancer that the
Okay.
resulting residual effect was diabetes insipidus. And he will forever be on meds. And he's thriving and doing wonderful. But let me tell you, it was a very scary first year through treatment. And
Yeah.
one of the nonprofits that we support tremendously, both personally and by business, is Make-A-Wish. They changed my son's
Okay.
life.
Okay. That's
And
Jack.
yeah, Jack.
Okay.
So that basically was a 2.5 year process of absolute turmoil. And then it took a while to, get your feet back under you
Yeah.
and get your bearings and come out of the hole, if you will.
Yeah,
And
my sister just went through double mastectomy. She
oh,
went all this stuff too. Just
it
just to
never
add
ends.
another parallel.
It never.
Um, I mean, she made it through. She was very open about talking about it as well on Facebook and some of these social media outlets because of the importance of she was getting a regular mammogram.
Yep.
And
Never
also, I
know.
just interviewed Joe Koenig with Trimtex, and he was open about talking about getting a regular checkup. And they found he battled with cancer
Mhm.
a little bit, but they found it and they got it. So just that quick interlude.
But anyway, so that, I mean, that takes us up to probably 2018, 19. The pandemic is
Uh,
in the throes of development. And
right.
during that time, I took on a construction project. It was a passion project because my husband actually passed away at our lake home. And So it was very hard for me to go back there. And so I wanted to rebuild. I wanted to stay on the lake, but I couldn't keep that home. And so I single-handedly rebuilt a small home. I call it my chicken coop. It's a little bitty cottage. It looked like a chicken coop when I started. But that construction project was very healing for me because I did it all by myself. And had I not had all that experience with Randy, I would have never been able to do that by ever. And I made a lot of mistakes, but it was a fun journey. My boys were involved, and the boys and I have done a lot of projects since with Mudskip together as a family. And we get my whole army of family together and we have so much fun. But when we were doing that project, I realized that, some of these tricks of the trade that the lifers, the longtime experts are using are very potentially viable, right? They could be something. And so we sat down and talked about it. And I was at a point where I wanted to do something to give back and help people. And I wasn't sure if I was going to just retire completely and do nonprofit work, or if I was going to develop another company. And we collectively decided to start another company as a family. And this is where we're at today with this. And the actual additive, if you will, which is Mudskip, is fairly complex, and it's not easy to describe it or explain it, but the properties that it ensues are tremendous for what it does to joint compound. And when I was looking at it, I thought, right now at this moment, it's the components we were using were not commercially viable. But I got with a formulator and some chemists and worked through that. And now we have, I would say Mudskip 3.0. It's
Sure.
the latest, greatest, best in class for what it is. So
why Mudskip? Before we get into what Mudskip is, though, there must have been a point, like an aha moment, where you're like working with mud and you're like, this shit sucks. It should be better or something.
yeah. So I'm going to take that to the name first. So why Mudskip? So my surviving sons actually are very much into anime, and that's another story for another day. But at the end of the day, we collectively sat down and said, I would like some help to name this product. This is what it does, blah, blah, blah. These are the properties. So my sons came back to me with, why not Mudskip? And they showed me this little amphibious creature that's a mudskipper. I don't know if you're familiar with what a mudskipper is. It looks like it's an amphibious creature that looks like a salamander and a fish crossed over.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. But one of the one of the things that the mudskipper does, the male mudskipper goes into the den where the female lays her eggs and makes the den walls super, super smooth so that predators slip out. And I thought, first of all, I didn't even know what a mudskipper was when my boys brought this to me. Second of all, how dang clever is that? Like, it literally, it skips steps. There's so many ways you could market that name. And then we added a D. It's MUDD-SKIP because we couldn't obviously we couldn't get MUD-SKIP because it's such a popular Mudskipper is such a popular anime character that there was no way. So we are changing the way you spell mud. And on all of our correspondence, joint compound is now MUDD.
Yeah, you're changing mud. You're changing mud. Changing mud.
We'll get it in the dictionary soon.
Sure.
That'll give me 5 years to get MUDD in the dictionary.
Mudskip 4.0. But why did mud need to be better?
Well, so interestingly enough, back in 2020, I had a conversation with an individual who's on the executive team for a very large mud manufacturer in the US. And I asked them, what are the 3 things that are most important to you as a company that you're trying to change or improve or be the differentiator? And the answer was very simply time or labor time, sanding, reducing sanding so there isn't as much toxicity, and value, bringing value to the end user and the consumer.
Love
And
it.
so after that conversation, I knew we were onto something. That was when I filed the patent, because
Okay.
our product does all of those things and more, much
Okay.
more. So therein lies the beginning of that journey. So filing the patents in the middle of the pandemic, by the way, was not something that was the most efficient process, I will say, because we only just got our patent issued a year ago, and that's why we kind of did a slow release. I want to go back and say one thing I forgot something very important.
That's okay. Yeah.
You had mentioned that you had a stepbrother that died of suicide, and Paul, the gentleman that you spoke to, actually lost his 19-year-old son a year ago to suicide while he was at college at A&M in Texas. And I mean, you just can't, you can't understand what somebody goes through when you lose a person. Doesn't matter how old they are, but when they take their life, there's just like, how do you understand that? How do you, and I'm not diminishing any other loss of life by any means. My son's, loss to drugs is very similar, because we couldn't help him. We couldn't fix it.
Right.
We couldn't fix it.
Right.
So anyway, but I didn't want to forget that, so I apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Paul's son for sure.
And
It's gappy. It leaves a black hole. It's like, shit, man. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't, he sent a text to my stepdad. It's super sad, and it was just, it is what it is. And you just remember him, and you got to move on. But it's different than a non-suicide.
Yeah, for sure. But therein lies the fuel to this company. So every day I wake up and the first thing I say is, whose life can I change for good today? What are we going to do as a company to help people today?
Love it.
And so every day we actually seek and search out any organizations that we can put on our list. So when we're at the point where we can start just writing checks to them, because we're in the process of setting up a foundation that's called It's the Little Things That Matter. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that since filing that people say, and so it resonates with everybody. But we should be getting our charter, I would say, within the next 90 days.
Let's go back really quick to patent and pandemic. So you were talking about having an issue, or is more challenging filing a patent during a pandemic. Why did you feel you needed a patent, and also maybe do's and don'ts that you experienced while going through the patenting process that you might bestow upon our audience?
So I really don't know exactly why I felt like I needed a patent, other than I've read and researched that you should, protect your intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad. But at the end of the day, I feel like it was a way to be taken seriously, because let's face it, I'm a woman in a construction industry that is schlepping a drywall additive, and my background is not, I'm not that contractor, and it's very difficult to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest. And
it's difficult in the drywall industry if you're a male that's an expert in drywall launching a product, just to be clear.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. Thank you for that. But so that would probably be the why. Did we really need it? Probably not. But I felt like it would be a way to be taken seriously, and it, it's viable when you're trying to develop a company. I don't just look at the today. I'm looking at, years down the road, and what are the goals going to be? Because as a business owner, that's what you do. And I want to be able to get certified to do government contracting. I'm a woman-owned business. It makes sense. There's no reason I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to have the specification put in for medical facilities because of the dust mitigation. I would like
Yeah.
to have it spec'd in every hotel around the world that has decided to transform all their walls into smooth walls,
Yeah.
and explain to them that our product will help their contractors do that in half the time or less with no
Love it.
dust. Like, how do you get people to believe that and understand it? It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
And we've heard that repeatedly, but once we get it in people's hands, they're believers. The best
Sure.
day is when you take a 20 or 30-year veteran drywaller that is the biggest naysayer on the planet when it comes to
Yeah.
technology, new innovation, and you turn them into a believer.
Well, and also just that's, so you've given birth to this product and like it's your baby. And it's very almost like, when you create an art piece and somebody buys it, it's very fulfilling on many different levels when somebody, values what you've created enough to give it a try and then, a step further have success with it. That's super cool. All right.
Can I extend my answer on your question about the patent process and for
Yeah, yeah.
people?
We could talk about
One,
patent.
one thing I would like to just share with people is do your research, be very thorough.
Yeah.
I hired an attorney, which I think is very important
Yes.
to use a patent lawyer because they
Hmm.
will make sure that they know exactly what you should and shouldn't do and how to approach
Yes.
the protection piece that you're looking for. Don't cut any corners
Mm-mm.
on that process because it's an investment, but it will pay dividends in the end, I
Yeah.
believe. But
Well, and it's not just patent; it's trademark,
yeah, all of it.
copywriting, like all that stuff. Those intellectual property attorneys know all about
Yeah,
that stuff. So when you come to them with an idea, a lot of times it's a free consultation.
yeah,
They can give you a quote. Make sure and don't get a douchey one like I got that'll take all your money and not do anything. That's no good. They did stuff, but like I got burned, for, 20 grand for a patent that could have gotten pushed through, for 4 or 5 grand. So
yeah,
do your research
yeah.
and make sure you're hiring the right person. Get
Always
some that.
ask to speak to their clients. If
Yes.
they're happy to share their client list they have a handful that are willing to help them. And if they don't, there's a problem.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. We've got the Mud Skip. It's a unique name, named after this anime character, a mud skipper. It's kind of a unique little animal. It's sort of there's parallels between this mud skipper and the Mud Skip product that you're creating. You want mud to be a little better, more efficient, less labor, less sanding, adding value. You've taken the first step of through the patenting process was though the person that I met at Vegas 2 years ago, that was pre-patent. So did you
Yeah.
start to launch the product and then pull back on the reins?
So what we did was we were in the process. That would have been 2023. So we were still waiting because the pandemic just delayed everything. I believe it was
Okay.
almost 3 years. So
Yeah.
because we didn't get the issue until literally day one of IBS last year, we received
Okay.
notice of the patent being
That was the first show post-pandemic for the
yes.
AWCI.
Yes. So we were patent pending at
Okay.
that time. And we were only there really for discovery to see if this was going to be well received because I'm personally funding this entire company myself out of my
Okay.
retirement. So I like to
Okay.
sit on the beach and climb mountains. And
Sure.
I had to make sure that it was worth the risk of my joy.
Retirement, you can't be over 35,
Oh,
36 years of age.
you are amazing. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I'm almost 60.
Oh man. Well, you look fantastic.
My oldest child is 33. Sorry, Jordan, if I got that wrong. 32 or 33. I should know that.
That's okay. You pretty young then. Not too bad when you had your oldest. Okay, so you do this soft launch exploratory sort of launch, and you're maybe still gathering information.
Yeah, so we're at IBS and explaining the product and as best we could to the masses of naysayers. It was quite entertaining to say the least. And
What's some of the negative comments that you were getting initially?
well, I heard 1,000 times if I heard once, well, just put Dawn dish soap in your mud. Or just do
Okay.
this, just do that, or put salt in it, or whatever, or that's just
Solid.
plaster Paris. Just put plaster Paris in your mud. We use that all the time. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I'm like,
pixie dust.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was very entertaining, to say the
Okay.
least. But we literally were mixing mud skip in my kitchen, like literally. I have pictures of my sons and I. All my good pots and pans and my mixing bowls are
Yeah.
now mud skip
Yeah.
bowls for the historic museum.
Yeah, sure. I love it.
But anyway, so we literally handmade our packaging. We had printed stickers and we did all of our own design. Everything about this company is 100% organic and has been completed by our network of people that I have a tremendous group of really smart people that are willing to spend time helping me with wise counsel and generously donating their time to this effort. So it's incredible. There's so
Beautiful.
much good positive energy behind it.
You said you had a connection with somebody with a large mud manufacturing that gave you sort of some tips. I would say that's quite a resource as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's my connection. I just am the type of person that will pick up the phone and call the CEO and I get to
Yeah.
where I need to be in the chain
Yeah.
of command. And so in that process, I got very high in the food chain
Okay.
and they were willing to have a conversation with me. So I flew out to their corporate headquarters and had breakfast with them.
Very
And it
cool.
was probably the best discovery meeting that I could have had.
Okay.
And it really it definitely affected the path that we took in terms of
Cool.
how to roll it out. So
Oh,
2023 was we were learning everything. We didn't even have a website when we were at IBS in 2023. That's how rudimentary this discovery process was. We were
sure.
like garage band in
Yeah.
IBS. And we were told that our booth was one of the busiest booths. I'm not sure if that's true, but we definitely had a lot of people around our demos all the time.
Sure.
And we, generated a lot of sales as a result. So when we got back, we're like, okay, now how are we going to fill these orders? We'll figure it out. We did it.
Yeah.
And then everything else transpired. So we then planned for a hard launch in 2024, which we were much more prepared for and much better received based on the contractors and the people that had seen us the year before and came back. They're like, "Oh, you're back." And we're all grown up now. We've got real packaging. We've got, like
Yeah.
it's all good. And from that, then we were able to start getting into distribution and things like that. So
Okay, so you're at IBS and which is the International Builders Show. If you don't know, it
yeah,
happens in Vegas a lot. I've been to one of them, but it's massive. It's a
yeah.
massive building show. What are you demonstrating at that show? Let's get into what mud skip is and what it
Okay.
does to the mud, why it's so great.
Okay, so Mudskip is very simply a drywall additive that I have a 2 pound pack right here. This is
Okay.
this is our best seller is the 2 pound smooth. And you take that single 2 pounds and put it into any existing joint compound, whether it's a box mud, a bucket premix mud, or a hot mud. And the formulation works in every mud that we've tested on the market. And
Okay.
basically what it does is elevates the existing properties of whatever mud that it's in. And then it enhances it to the point where you can apply wet on wet coats once it's dry to touch. And then you do not have to sand it. You can sand it, but you don't have to. And you end up with a stronger, harder, stronger tensile strength, more flex, less shrink product in the end. And you can literally get a level 5 smooth finish in a day in perfect conditions. So if you're in like
Okay.
Vegas, for example, where it's very dry and there's
Okay.
no humidity whatsoever,
Yeah.
we were putting on our demos 10 to 15 layers of mud on top of each other on our demo
Okay.
board. And in 2024, I didn't even realize that was a thing. Like I didn't
Yeah.
realize
We're
that was.
talking about curing. We're talking about curing. If I'm a drywaller, it's gonna affect the drywall. It's gonna affect the tape coat. If I try to rush that bed coat and
Yeah.
I'm gonna put on heavy, I'm gonna tape it and then it's best to let that dry. And then I'm gonna put on a second coat and it's best to let that dry. That's my fill coat. And then I'm gonna do a third coat, and sometimes people will even brush or sand those edges between those. Sanding is all about cutting down those lap lines or edges. You're
Nothing.
saying that this additive, if I add it to my regular joint compound, now all of a sudden I can do a first, second, and third coat on top of each other, maybe with minimal wait time in between, or how does that work?
So we don't claim that it accelerates the drying by any means. That's one of the biggest
Okay.
misnomers of the product. But what
Okay.
happens is because of the composition of the additive, it actually creates like a matrix. This is how I describe it to people. If you were to look at this under a microscope and you look at
Okay.
a joint compound without mudskip and a joint compound with mudskip, you're going to see that the particles integrate within
Okay.
each other with mudskip.
Okay.
And it has an adhesive patent. So
Okay.
with that, you're actually getting this additional bonding capacity when you put it into existing joint compound. And the
Okay.
reality is when you're putting the mud on the wall, and we've got videos out there where we're comparing the two, and you put regular joint compound on the wall, it's wet, 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 and then you put a sample of joint compound with mudskip, and in like 20 minutes to an hour, depending. Now, there are certain situations if you're in northern Canada where
Sure.
it's sub-zero and damp, it
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
what I tell people is if your job normally takes you 5 days, you'll get it done in 2.5. If it's 3 days, it'll be a day and a half. If it's 2 days, it's
Okay.
10 days, it's 5. Just cut it in half because you're going to be able to put that next layer of joint compound on that wall
Cool.
much quicker, and you don't have to wait for it to cure so you can sand it out because you don't have to sand it out. It feathers so smoothly and it
Okay.
transforms it into this super, super creamy frosting type product
Okay.
that blows people's mind. They
Okay.
literally, the evidence is in the bucket as soon as you spin it in.
And
And
then
that's
I checked
right.
out the website as well, and you can, if you're listening and you've piqued your interest thus far, you can go to the website and there's a lot of great videos there where it's explaining what we're talking about. If it's a drywaller like I know drywallers, they're going to understand curing time. So, and if I'm understanding correctly, these marriages of these various coats are bonding together in such a way that's creating it so that I don't need curing as much curing time to add multiple coats, and I'm feathering it out to the nth degree, hence the no sanding part. That part is tricky because it's hard for me to think, oh, okay, I'm going to tape and two coat this wall. I'm going to do it in half the time I normally do it, and I'm not going to have to sand. And then if I'm doing a level 5, I'm going to spray that wall with a very, light layer of paint and not see the button band. That's the ultimate goal. That's what drywall guys and gals freak out over flat. Flat is king. Like that
Yeah,
is the ultimate goal in the drywall industry, especially in Canada and the East Coast.
right.
Everything's level 5. It's got to be what they call tits in the industry
Yeah.
is perfectly flat.
Well, and
And
you
that's
put your light
Vogue.
on it, right? Put your light on it. That's all you
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
These are things I've learned over the years of what the tricks that the contractors do. But I will say we chose the level 5 smooth as the idea to create the buzz for the differentiator. but Mudskip actually takes it beyond there. So we see this as a whole new category. But in speaking with those manufacturers, that's like not even comprehensible to them. Like nobody's going to make a new category, right? And so I
right. You're going level 6. You're going level 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never
Well,
be
actually,
done. It's like a Spinal Tap when they add the 11 to the knob.
MUDD, level 6. It's now level 6 or beyond, you know. So we actually and we can get into this in a minute when we talk about the finisher.
There's the new logo. You got MUD and then
Oh,
a 6.
I love it. I love that. I love that. I'm writing it down right
That's
now.
for free. That's for free, Sheila.
Awesome.
The next one I'm going to charge.
Fantastic. But anyway, I hope I didn't forget anything about the properties of I was rattling them off. So we talked about the wet on wet coats. I'm trying to think of the things that the contractors tell us are the differentiators. Wet on wet coats when dry to touch. And then of course the fact that it rehydrates, which I'll talk about more in a minute. The curing,
I'm already sold. Beyond that, I need to try it. So I need to try it and see how it operates, not only with the color, but like with the drying time, with the curing, because that's especially so for instance, if I put on a second coat of Fresco Harmony and it's a little green, and by green I mean you can see wet and dry spots, the second coat is going to dry quicker than the base coat. Sometimes I go over existing painted texture and I'm waiting for that base coat to cure. It's not going to off gas into the wall like it will with drywall. It off gases out. That coat takes a while to dry. Atmosphere definitely affects the dry time. But then when I put on that second coat, it's tight and it's absorbing into the mud and it's also off gassing out. If I put on my sealer, we've talked about the clear sealer, it'll pull the mud. So if it's a little bit green, I tell people be careful, because it'll pull the mud. It sounds like maybe Mudskip, it would help with that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you noticed that and brought that up, because that's a very important factor. And this was one of the things I realized in IBS 2024 when we had 12 layers of mud on the board.
Yeah.
No shrink, no peeling, no drag.
Okay.
And the guys are like, well, did you bring this from the outside? No, we're come back in 2 hours. Or an hour. We're putting another coat on it. Okay. And the fact that that's the bonding, therein lies the patent value, the bonding strength of the properties that the mud takes on with existing joint compound. It literally transforms it into what we're calling Mudskip, this product that you can do all of the things that we claim, and it literally, because of that, depending on how you do what your process is, it's going to save you extraordinary amount of time. And most of all, it's safer because you don't have to have the dust, and nobody wants the dust. I wouldn't want my contractors sanding if they don't have to, because it's very toxic.
Well, the only thing that drywallers love about the dust is talking about how much they hate it. And you'd be surprised at these the picture. They love to post pictures with the sanding dust all over them. It's almost like a rite of passage, or a flex in the drywall industry to show how much dust I'm getting on me in any given day. Because I'll tout with Fresco Harmony too, very little dust, very little sanding. The system's designed to not be sanded.
Well,
but
it closes the cells, right? Yours does very much the same as ours. It literally closes the cells, which allows that to happen. Where if you put back to the comparison, no Mudskip and with Mudskip, and you scratch both of them, this one will scratch easily and be dusty. This one will not.
Oh.
And if you use our conditioner, the finisher in it as well, it becomes more like plaster. So we
okay, let's run through the products, because I saw on the website, I saw the conditioner. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to use all this shit. I want to test it all. I'm very curious.
Yeah, sure. So we have 2 formulations for the actual additive. It's the heavy duty and the smooth level 5. And it's important to know that you can use the heavy duty. If you're a professional, you can use the heavy duty from taping and seams all the way to level 5 or even to a plaster type finish because you would have the skill to do so. For the people that are wanting to have that actual, the multi-step process that is the best of the best in class, then you would use heavy duty for your taping and bedding because it is a little less expensive, and get to the point of your base coat. And then you would skim with the smooth with either the same mud or a lighter mud, whatever your process is. And then and that's if you're wanting to do like a full wall to have it look like a plaster wall, or if you're wanting to get anything over a level 3, you can use smooth from taping and bedding all the way up. The heavy duty,
I would probably use the smooth.
Yeah, most people do. It's our best seller. But if you have, we've got examples on our website of one of the houses that we redid in Columbus, Wisconsin. We call it Armageddon. They literally took out the cast iron plumbing and all of the aluminum wiring. So there were holes in the wall like this big everywhere. And we used the heavy duty in there. And I personally took in one section where we abandoned a door and filled it in. The homeowner did the patch in. So it was good, but it wasn't, it wasn't even. And so I took a 2x4 and smoothed mud on almost an inch thick. It was like 3/4 of an inch thick just to test it, see if it would shrink, if it would crack out, if it would bubble, any of that, if it would fall off, drag off the wall.
Love
it. After it took us 3 days to get that because it was so thick to get it finished to a level 5 smooth, but it held up great. So you can put it on as thick as you want. If you're going over like a heavy stucco or a Tuscan texture wall, use the heavy duty with a really hardy mud and get all the texture filled and then come with your smooth.
So maybe I would do heavy duty on the base coat, my heavier base coat where I'm covering the texture.
If you're doing a lot of repairing or you're covering a really, really heavy texture.
Yeah.
And I'm talking we haven't found a texture yet that's been too hard to finish.
Yeah, well, I've gone over some nightmares, I've gone over straight popcorn with all-purpose joint compound. That's, pretty much as heavy as it gets. With Quickset, I've gone over straight up brick. Like fireplaces.
We have people actually testing. We haven't done this yet, but we have people using it on concrete cinder block and concrete walls and bricks, a lot of different applications. And we're getting great feedback on it it's coming out fine. Now, I'm not sure. We haven't gathered the data to see which mud they're using or any of that. But the adhesive properties that are in the technology, we tell people, if you want the maximum capacity of what we've created, use the whole system, use the finisher as well, because that will just take it to a whole nother level. If you don't need it, you don't want to add the expense, you're just all about speed and volume and getting your seams flushed out so you can spray coat and go, that's fine.
So you've mentioned maybe 3 products. You've got the heavy duty. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's basically exactly the same as the smooth packaging. It just says.
Okay. It says heavy duty. Okay. So you've got heavy duty, you've got smooth.
The conditioner is, right now we're only selling it in gallons, and you put 8 ounces of the conditioner in your mud. It's designed for the whole job. So you get 16 batches out of a gallon, 16 boxes or buckets. And the conditioner basically adds another layer of creaminess and bondability and all the things that the dry technology gives you. It takes it to the more plaster look. So for people who want that plaster wall, or if you're like that house I was talking about had plaster over lath, if you're repairing that type of finish, you're going to want the conditioner because you want to be able to polish it shiny like the other finish.
Love it.
Matches it. Otherwise it'll be a little more matte and you'd have to fix that with your paint, I suppose.
All right, so I want to get a gallon of. I mean, I want to try all the products, but I'm listening. I want to get a gallon of the conditioner and maybe a bag of the heavy duty. Where do I go? What's the best way for me to get a hold of these products?
So in the United States right now, you will go to either Amazon or our website, which is a Shopify website. We're building out our entire store in Shopify, and
Cool.
that's at mudskip.com, muddskip.com. And we're shipping out with receipt in 2 to 4 days, typically on all of the packages. And
Right.
even the 5-gallon buckets are arriving within 4 days. So we're actually beating Amazon in our
Yeah.
shipping out of our fulfillment
What's your
center.
experience with Amazon?
Paul told me not to say anything negative.
Okay. Fuck those guys.
You know what?
Hey, wait. Hey, Sheila, let me cover this one.
They
No,
are,
no, no.
they are
No,
a big
Bezos, he's a great
machine.
guy, great
They're a
guy.
big machine. They
He's got
serve a
lots of
wonderful
money.
purpose. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Hey,
They serve
and
a
you
good
want to know
purpose.
another secret? Jeff Bezos don't give a shit what you say about Amazon.
Yeah, no, I know, I know. We appreciate all the platforms, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
try to always, my motto is always be the light, right? You can't complain.
I
You're always being the
I
light.
went completely away from Amazon. I was like, it's my product. I can do whatever I want with it.
Yeah,
I can ship it. They might pay a little bit more to buy it from me, but if they can't get it anywhere else, then it is what it is.
yeah.
And then I don't have it getting muddled out there in the
Yeah,
Amazon
we
world.
are having a little bit of an issue with
Yeah, people buy it and resell it, or
yeah.
you get all that going on. It's like, how do
Yeah,
you
I hadn't
regulate?
even really thought about that, but that makes sense. We're having a little bit of a problem with our product getting mislabeled. So the 5-gallon buckets,
Right.
you can see behind me, that's a 5-gallon bucket has 20 batches of this in it. So
Okay.
there's a scoop inside the bucket and there's
Okay.
20 scoops in there. So when you're on the job, it's easier to have a 5-gallon bucket that you can use later for mixing
Sure.
and versus having all these bags laying around. And they've been sending, unfortunately, people that buy the 5-gallon bucket, 2-pound bags. So
Beautiful.
that's what we're currently dealing with. But this is
Come
the
on,
finisher.
guys.
So
Come on.
Paul brought me a sample of the finisher. This is the gallon of the Mudskip finisher that you would
Okay.
put in when you're mixing. 8 ounces, and then you can also use it when you're rehydrating the wall, which we hadn't really talked too much about. So
Sure,
one of the
we could talk
one of
about
the
that.
big the differentiators of the product is the fact that the mud will rehydrate. And traditional joint compound won't rehydrate after you put
Love
it on
it.
the wall and it's set. And with our product, you can bring it back up to 24 hours and retool it. So if you have any imperfections, or you can add more mud on and feather it out and it'll blend beautifully if you have some low spots or high spots. And let's say somebody walks through and dings a wall and you just have a little nick, you just spray it with either a water mist or 32 ounces of water with 8 ounces of our finisher and
Okay.
with that, and it will retool like cake frosting.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. I mean, you're talking to a mud master here. We well over probably 1.5 million square feet. We've got a 5,000 square foot job that we're starting next week. I've got some ballers coming down from Illinois, Drywall, Jesse and Michael Drees, and then I've got Jay Delt coming from Tennessee. I don't want to get that wrong. I think it's Tennessee. Also, to help out, I would love to get some of this before that project starts, so that we could play
Yeah,
around with it and
yeah, for sure.
give you some hard data.
So there's another
Where?
property that I want to share. I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Yes, no problem.
keep your thought, but one of the
Okay.
things I know I forgot was the permeability rating that our product has.
Okay.
So we actually had this formally tested in 2024 because we could see that one of the questions we get a lot is if you put it in a mud, will it keep? And so we have
Oh,
testing going on right now where we have products that are 2.5 years on the shelf.
Beautiful.
having been mixed for 2.5 years,
Oh, wow.
and they're spinning up just like the day that they were used, and then being
Beautiful.
used for patch or repairs. And we're not seeing any issues with that. So that's a work in progress. But it actually, I believe, makes it last longer,
Yeah.
because I have never had any joint compound that after a year you could spin it up and use it. And,
I have. You got to use clean water because the bacteria will get into it. Does it help with bacteria and mold?
yes, so tremendously. We just discovered this actually.
Cool.
So we're starting formal testing on this as well because of the permeability testing that we had done on it. We actually took existing products off the shelf and had the permeation test done in those products
Okay.
against with and without, and it elevated it dramatically. So
Cool.
the moisture penetration, it can't get into the mud, so you don't
Right.
have the ability to let the spores grow. And in addition to that, there's part of the composition that this is the science behind it. Basically repels spores, so they can't grow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it.
And
Okay,
that's
so
where
it does.
we would like to get that for the hotels, especially in the Caribbean. We've got a lot
Yeah.
of people using it in the
Yeah.
Caribbean right now for that reason. And
I want
any
to
of
go to the Caribbean and just test some product in the Caribbean. So would Mudskip pay for me to go to the Caribbean?
let's go. Let's go. Let's
Um,
go.
but that's a great,
All my people that are buying from
yeah,
us right now are going to be like, send them here, send them here, send them here. And I
yeah,
can see
yeah,
my email just dinging. No.
yeah. Very cool. So you would say yes, and then those mold and mildew resistance. I know that you can do testing for mold and mildew resistance.
Yeah.
That information will be posted onto the website, I'm sure, as soon as you have that data out. But in your best guess, or the research that you've done thus far, you would say that it definitely helps with.
Definitely elevates. Yeah, it all
Okay,
mud.
that's
So
cool.
if you already have a mud that is mildew resistant, it's going to be even more mildew resistant, because
They're
remember, it
all,
goes
I
into the
feel like they
cell.
all do it. Like that water gets in there and that's where the bacteria grows. And so what happens is as a mud person, we're at the mixing area, there's hands in the water, there's bacteria constantly getting in the water. Even if you're keeping the water clean, bacteria will still get in there. People spit in the water. Drywallers are a real nasty breed, and it's hard to keep water. They'll attest. Trust me, that it's hard to keep water clean. So I'm always like, use clean water. Like keep a batch of clean water around when you mix your joint compound, which is a good policy,
Yeah.
anyways. But because I
So
know
that
that if you have anything but distilled drinking water with that you mix anything into a USG joint compound, anything other than distilled drinking water, it voids the warranty. Have you had anybody come at you with like, oh, I can't use this product because it's going to void the warranty for the product or anything like that?
No, interestingly enough, we haven't, and I think the reason that we don't is they're so happy with the way it performs.
Okay.
It's like it's the game changer from a time perspective, and the fact that we've got product now that's been on the walls for years, and we don't have any issues. We're not
Sure.
having the settling cracks in the Midwest, for example, where there's always settling cracks because it gets so hot, so cold. The temperature varies by 100 degrees in some seasons.
Okay. So you'd also say it gives it maybe some elasticity.
Absolutely. So the
Okay.
tensile strength is huge. The flex or elasticity for sure. The
Okay.
bondability, and that's where the ability to put the mud directly on raw drywall when you're wanting to get a plaster type finish is pretty key, because you don't need a
Okay.
bonder. And normally,
Yeah.
blue board's hard to get. It's expensive. It's clunky. And people are trying to find alternatives to blue board all around the world. And they're using drywall for those plaster walls, but they have to put a bonder on, and then they have, multiple
Don't
coats.
don't get me started with plaster.
So you don't have to. I mean, we see Mudskip as being a plaster replacement. And
Okay.
one of our go forward plans is to be able to have a standalone mud that will be a plaster replacement that
Okay.
anybody can use, even a
Sure.
novice.
Sure. Very cool. Okay, and yeah, and that segues into like, where, you would like to see maybe this replacing, the standard for certain products in this market or disruptor, type of product. Is there any other things that you see happening or goals that you would like to achieve as it pertains to it's the little things that matter movement or anything like that, where you sort of see this going, what your ultimate goal?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big goal would be to have the companies that we're working with now, like modular home manufacturers, for example, they love our
Okay.
product
Yeah.
because they can cut their time down from 3 days or 2 days to as
Yeah.
little as a day, move those boxes out, and then not have all the post installation issues that they have without Mudskip. Have companies like that actually supporting some of our initiatives that we are supporting. Like, I'll give you an example. One that I just found out recently, they ran out of funding, which broke my heart. Project Lift in Florida. We have been a partner of theirs for more than a year and providing them product for what they do is take troubled teens and young adults who've struggled with addiction, and they help them through the rehabilitation process and teach them a trade and then get them back into the workforce. And, there's nothing more rewarding than hearing those stories and seeing the
Yeah.
photos. And people are so grateful. We would love for those types of initiatives to never have to worry about running out of funding. Like if, we're just a small company, but if we all band together and all of our clients join in the initiative, we'll be able to help those companies or those organizations, foundations
Okay.
and charities stay productive and make a tremendous difference in the world
Yeah.
as we know it.
So because of your hardships or your experience, your life experience, you sort of have this soft spot for these organizations and this philanthropic underlying idea behind Mudskip that you'd like to see. Uh,
Genesis, that's what we're doing it for. That's what I'm doing it for.
right.
Because like I said, I was at the precipice of going to the beach, going to the mountains, just hanging
Yeah.
out, living life, spending time with my nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
living life, or doing something that's going to matter and make a difference in the world. And
Yeah.
I know that Randy and Colin are behind this every day, every day.
Yeah.
And when I get discouraged, I think about that and it just
Yeah.
keeps me going. And I'm a bit relentless at times. So
Well, I'm sure they're super proud of you. I am. I know that, and it's fun.
yeah,
Let's face it, developing a product, marketing a product, like all that stuff is extremely fun. As challenging as it is at times, I can't imagine my life without what I do. Even this is a bitch.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I gotta edit. I love it though. I mean, we got to meet.
yeah. You can
This is a
tell you have a
blessing.
passion. It's
Last
all about
question.
family and community, right? You want to be able to do what you love and help those around you.
Yeah,
And back to your question, for as a company, we would love to be able to see some licensing opportunities come to
yeah,
our company, because when something like that happens, now you're talking about really being able to make a difference. Like
yeah,
that's, you know, a big difference. And
yeah,
that would be ideal. Government contracts obviously is in our
yeah,
future. We want to be able to involve the sense of family and community within our organization and everybody that we deal with, because it's very
yeah,
important to us. And obviously that is the foundation of this conversation. And in our foundation, it's the little things that matter. We hope one day we'll provide countless scholarships to people who want to be in the trades,
sure.
and all those things we talked about earlier. It's
You're looking around the room there a little bit. Is there people in the room there? You got people there with
oh,
you?
no, well, Paul is making sure I don't forget certain things, but I have these pieces of
Nice.
art I'm a collector of Peter Lick, and
Okay.
I I don't like if I'm not making eye contact, I'm thinking, I'm processing. I look at my art. Like this piece behind me, it's called
Yeah,
Jenna.
yeah. I
It's
love
been
it.
in my office for 22 years. It's one of my favorite pieces, and I have so many great memories with my family there in Hawaii. I
Okay.
I love it. So I'm not distracted. I'm like
Okay.
appreciating but Paul did tell me that I need to make sure that I mention one more thing.
Yeah. Love it.
We
Duh.
actually are also rolling out, I forgot to mention, Mud Patch is actually in the new product zone for 2025 IBS. And we're
Okay.
still working on these are just prototypes. We're still working on our
Okay.
packaging. But
Okay.
there's going to be 16 ounce and 32 ounce, and we're considering gallon. So we'd like some
Yeah.
feedback on that. By the way, this is what the little mud skipper looks like. Can you see that?
Cool. I gotta get that logo. Yeah. That's kind of
Um,
your caricature logo.
yeah, we haven't really promoted it yet, but that's what it looks like. But the mud patch is has all the same properties as the additive, but it's pre-mixed. So you can actually just open this up and use it to patch or smooth or whatever
Sure.
anywhere and multiple substrates without a bonder. And it has all the same properties. You can do multiple coats because it's
Right.
literally a pre-mixed version of mud skip on steroids. So
Yeah.
it has a little more of the magic. Sometimes I just need to stop talking, but
No, no,
make
not at
sure that
all.
I don't miss any of these points because Paul's been very efficient in making sure that I get everything. So we're actually talking about launching a Kickstarter because
Oh,
we currently are doing contract manufacturing, and there's always stuff that you can't control in a situation like that. Although we have great relationships with our contract manufacturers, we love them and they're doing a great job. As we scale and we need to be making a lot more product, we really would like to have our own facility for manufacturing. So I think we're gonna actually do a Kickstarter to raise extra capital to be able to buy our own
okay.
blenders and have the facility and be able to do all of these products in-house so that we can really focus on some of the other things that are important with it, which is product development and keep the machine rolling because
Yeah.
obviously it's all about the purpose.
Yeah, growth, and scalability and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
One thing I do ask all of the people that come on the Drywall podcast is a pearl of wisdom that you could bestow on the Drywall community and beyond. If you could say one thing or put something on a billboard, what would it be?
Keep it as simple as my mantra is always be the light. Every day, everything you think about, everything you do. I believe that there's two emotions, love and hate. There's nothing in between if you really think about it. And if you are speaking to somebody, talking to a client, having a moment, where's it coming from? Is it coming from love or is it coming from hate? If we all
Uh,
just take a minute and think about what we do, and I'm as guilty as anybody. I can go 0 to 100 in half a second. Ask my kids. Ask
yeah,
Paul. He'll
yeah,
tell you. He's on the other side of the office and he can hear me just blow my top. I mean,
yeah,
that's not being the light. Like, I don't like that. I don't want to be
yeah,
that
yeah,
person. So always be the light. Always think about everything you do and say, and make sure everything is from love because it will change everything. People today are so disconnected and they just want to feel love and sense of community, and it's not that difficult to do. You can do it going to the grocery store. I remember when
mm-hmm.
I was in a real difficult space and I just needed to get out and interact, and I thought, what am I going to do? I would literally go to the grocery store and walk around with a smile on my face and do good deeds for people just to get that interaction and reaction so I would feel good about my current situation.
Yeah,
And it's the little things. But the
mm-hmm.
other thing is I think we all need to remember the people that are suffering. Right now, what's going on in LA is excruciatingly difficult to watch on TV. It's
Yeah,
maddening, and we see it everywhere. We saw it in Lahaina, Hawaii. We see it everywhere. I mean, all over the world. But every time you think your day is so bad, just remember somebody else has it a lot worse than you do, no matter what your circumstances.
I love it. Sheila Cross, Mud Skip. Look for it in a retailer near you soon. We can find Mud Skip on all the social media platforms, I assume. You got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. There is a bunch of videos on the website that I saw. They're fantastic. Anywhere else that you... TikTok?
I think pretty much all of the platforms. I'm not sure if we've got LinkedIn completely done yet.
Sure.
But the ones that everybody uses, for sure. And then, of course, our website is a great resource.
Yeah.
And
it's very well done.
We're working, we're actually redoing it right now because we've been told it needs to be amped up. So we're amping it up.
Everybody's got an opinion. And they all stink.
We seek wise counsel whenever we can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And if you are throwing out tidbits, it is good to be open to suggestions. And remember, it is difficult to create a product and, market a product in this space, especially. Thank you so much for being on the Drywall podcast today. If I'm going to shut down here, if you want to stay on and chat for a little bit, we can, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you as well and your platform and what you're doing.
Special thanks to Sheila for being with us on the Drywall podcast today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your honesty, and I love getting to meet new friends, and I feel like we became new friends instantly, so that is cool. The Drywall podcast can be listened to most Fridays. I haven't been 100% on track with every Friday. Lately, it's been busy. I was going to go to every other Friday, and then I was like, you know what, Nick? Just post these on the Fridays that you can, and that's good enough. So that's kind of what I'll start doing, although we do have a lot of great interviewees lined up. Tune in for the next Drywall podcast. You won't be disappointed. And also, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. The only reason, and I'm not joking, that I keep doing this is because of you guys and gals. You keep listening. You keep giving me positive feedback, and I really appreciate that. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, and remember, keep drywalling.